Welcome to the Global Health Beat. I'm Amanda Preto, bringing you CMI Media Group's brand new thought leadership series, highlighting the healthcare and media trends, nuances, and especially opportunities across international markets. I'm excited to kick things off today with a focus on healthcare marketing in the UK with our own Director of Global Media, Matt Durham, who's based in London, and he's invited our value partners. We have Henry Carter of Medscape and Mark Clifford of the BMJ for today's conversation. So we're going to get started first with Mark, and we want to talk about where we're seeing digital adoption across the UK.
So for us, the BMJ, print still makes up some of the mix into what we're doing. It's always been historically a very important part of what we do. We're part of the BMA, and it's still regarded as an important membership benefit for BMA members in the UK. Saying that, we've clearly seen an adoption over to digital platform in terms of print still plays a part in what we do, but certainly digital now is at the forefront, certainly in new products that we're developing and new investment that we're making for our users.
Matt, why don't you weigh in now with your thoughts? What should pharma marketers in the US be thinking in terms of what's happening globally, and how is that impacting decision making here?
Especially in the UK, about how healthcare professionals are increasingly mobile first when they're looking for new information, when they're engaging with medical content. So I'm kind of curious, both from a Medscape perspective and a BMJ perspective, what impact that's had and, what you're seeing on your platforms.
Good point, Matt. From Medscape's perspective, we are very much a mobile first organization and have been for many years. I think now in 2024, we're seeing recognition across the UK pharma industry that there are really important similarities between professional and consumer information seeking behavior. So we're starting to see pharma recognize now that Google is very much a start point for HCP information seeking, and that so much of that traffic is inevitably going to come from mobile, especially when you think about the junior doctors that the NHS in the UK is really built on. And then third-party platforms like Medscape and the BMJ are really well set up in that respect, because we have villages of people whose sole job it is to work on our SEO and our membership retention and make sure we come top of the list in Google. So really, it's Google and then third-party platforms like BMJ, like Medscape, will always be early, if not the first port of call in an HCP's information-seeking process, and that recognition is certainly spreading.
For us, mobile is really important. So I think the way doctors are consuming information now, and a lot of that I think maybe down to sort of the pandemic as well, different ways of working, information, content being consumed not only in the workplace but out of the workplace as well. Doctors on the move, obviously how they consume that information and being able to consume it, in the right format is vital.
From what we're seeing, it's very much a global trend, and certainly, the UK is no different in that respect. There are, of course, going to be nuances at local level, but the similarities certainly outweigh the differences in terms of, information consumption behavior patterns.
Yeah, I think the only slight difference maybe for us is where the type of information and content that's being consumed. So typically, big research papers would still be viewed from a desktop level as opposed to mobile, simply because the size of some of the research papers that we're publishing are really big. So we still see that as a way of doctors consuming content on the BMJ through the research papers. But certainly from a news and education perspective, mobile and tablet devices are the trend that is increasing.
Completely agree with that, and we see a lot of traffic from mobile during working hours as doctors are coming on specifically looking for a particular need for a particular patient. And it's not just our data. There's a ton of documentaries out there on streaming services about junior doctors on the front line and kind of a look inside the NHS. And whenever I watch any of those, I see every doctor pulling out their mobile as they're seeing a patient and Googling something. And, it's all phone as they're running around a hospital ward. So it is, as Mark said, that need for kind of short form, quick information. And yeah, there may be different patterns when someone's going to sit back and read a full clinical paper. They might want a bigger screen and and therefore gravitate towards desktop for that.
Just wondering if you're seeing any trends specific to the UK around the omni-channel adoption in the UK over the past couple of years.
I think from my perspective, I'm noticing that UK pharma is increasingly recognizing the need for a broader mix of channels than just relying on those traditional owned channels, the rep and their own web properties, on their own. We're starting to see real kind of progress there. For example, companies, looking at the entire customer journey rather than just the parts that they own. At Medscape, the way we've kind of developed on that is by building out our own network in the UK. So we have a .co.uk local site, and we also have our .com flagship site that UK doctors can access global information through. And when we partner up with pharma, we're really looking at how to extend pharma's presence kind of across the whole customer journey, even now into those off-duty moments when doctors are browsing outside of endemic platforms. I think the recognition is coming from the fact that doctors are not in one place online. They're never going to be in one place. And so from a pharma point of view, it's about surfacing the right content to them wherever they are at a given moment.
I think a lot of it comes down to the fact that doctors pharmaceutical companies are looking for greater engagement with HCPs across a variety of different platforms. Years ago it was display advertising, and that really was it. But opening that up to content-based solutions, email alerts, medical education, really encompassing the whole sort of mix of different options, and really does open up a lot for pharma to sort of get their teeth into, but also provides, importantly for a pharma company and a pharma client, a clear ROI on what they're doing. So, measuring the success from an omni-channel campaign and breaking that out and having that sort of transparency is really important. We find, I'm sure for Medscape as well, important in terms of working with pharma and working with the industry.
I remember years ago a colleague of Mark telling me about how every Friday every GP or every HCP in the UK would get the BMJ to their home address, and they would spend the whole weekend engaging with it. It's almost like the original way to reach the HCPs when not at the hospital. We've all neglected a little bit to an extent, how important that space is for pharma companies for reaching the UK. And just curious if that's, you're both seeing reaching those HCPs away from the hospital.
We absolutely are. I mean, we've always said that Medscape and third-party platforms, the BMJ and others, extends the working day of a doctor, because the engagement we see on our own platforms is round the clock. What we've done recently at Medscape is really build that out, looking at how we can identify, reach, and engage our verified Medscape HCP members on the whole web, wherever they choose to be at a given moment. The principle with us of wanting to drive connectivity in all of those touch points, and consistency for the HCP across their online experience. Mark, I'll hand over to you.
The BMJ still goes to the majority of doctors and HCPs through their letterbox, and it lands on their door every Friday. From all the research we've done, they still like that. They still like having that physical read of the BMJ, and very much look forward to receiving that every week. We all know that HCPs are incredibly busy people. So, I think as publishers, we need to sort of tap into that and evolve with that to make sure that the right content at the right time is going to HCPs when they need it. And that might not necessarily be during their sort of 9 to 5 or 9 to 10 in the evening, depending on their shift, during their working day.
All right, so we're going to wrap things up with a thought-provoking question. Let's hear from you all. What do you have to share around healthcare marketing that might, in the UK, healthcare marketing in the UK that might surprise people in other countries? Why don't we start with Henry?
Good question. I think from my perspective, I've been, around the world to, the top 25 pharma companies, and one of the most common questions and topics of conversation is the fascination with the NHS. The NHS in the UK is very precious to all of us Brits. It's highly complex structurally, which presents all sorts of challenges to pharma, of course. But a free at the point of care service that is going strong after a long time is something very, very valuable and very important to UK pharma as well as to the UK public.
You stole my thunder a bit, Henry. I was also along the lines of the NHS, speaking to people in the US and globally. I think the sort of fascination of the NHS, and as you say, Henry, the fact that it's free at the point of care seems to always stir debate and conversation on the pros and cons of it, and as quite rightly Henry said, it's something we're very protective of in the UK as sort of our jewel in the crown, if you like. Obviously, it's not perfect. It's very much a topic of conversation that usually comes up at some point during a conversation or a meeting. Yeah.
I think something that may surprise maybe pharma marketers who are in other regions, other European regions especially, is I guess how international it is in the UK. Even though you could be working on a UK brand, the brand manager often is from a different country. The suppliers you're dealing with are often from a different country. Agency life is full of people from all over the world. And it's so interesting. It brings so many different perspectives to everything we do because we're bringing people from all over the world based here. And when I kind of work in some other markets, it's more, I guess, homogenous. Most people working in that space are from that country, whereas the UK, especially this sector, is so diverse and it's so interesting because you're meeting people from all over the place, and they're bringing what's worked excellently in their previous markets to kind of really enhance everything we do here. So just from that level, it's interesting, but also just a great experience to work in.
And I think to that point, that helps to drive the innovation within the sector, to drive out new ideas, to drive, as I say, innovation. That's something that you see and actually makes you very proud to see that diversity within the sector and the fruit that bears.
It translates to a real breeding ground for talent, both obviously in the health service, but in the pharma industry in the UK as well.
That's a wrap for the Global Health Beat today. Thank you for joining us for this conversation around prescriber engagement across the UK. To learn more about a global strategy for your brand, do reach out to CMI Media Group and Matt Durham. We'll see you next time on the Global Health Beat.